Hello and welcome to Eternal Journey. I'm That Resolves, and this is something new that I'm going to be adding to the channel. This is going to be a series primarily aimed at newer players, or players who are looking at breaking into ranked. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 weeks, I think I'm just going to be trying to bring one of these out a week, where we'll look at our deck, and I'll look at it in 3 phases. So the first one is like the new player friendly, so where you should be able to get in like the first week or so of playing, and that'll be the version with like 10 or less rares. And then the second part of the video will be the souped up version, so it might include a legendary, or it might include just a couple more playsets of rares that you might really be looking at when you're going to be playing it on the ladder. And then the final part of the video is going to be the end point for that deck, and what it looks like as it is played in the higher end of the ladder or on the Eternal Tournament series. I have cheated a little bit for the first one, and that's because this one does include a campaign, but I would recommend that you went out and got it, as this will really help to fill up the deck with quite a lot of power. And what I've got here this week is going to be Argenport, which is also a deck that I've got the most experience with, so I feel like I can tell you what you could change and really get away with in this list. So to make this deck, you do need to purchase the Tavrod campaign, also known as the Tale of Horrors Traveller, as this will fill your collection out with the Tavrod Auric Broker and also the Auric Interrogator. And these are 2 really crucial pieces of this deck. The campaign does cost 25,000 gold, which is doable in about 2 weeks of regular play, just playing your first 9 games a day. As well as, I'm pretty sure the beginning of the game is quite friendly to new players as well, so if you just play through to Masters of Gauntlet and Forge, you should be nearly the way there. But I would also just recommend just buy the gems to grab the campaign, as then that will free up the 25,000 gold that you've got, so you could just play 5 drafts, or you could buy 25 packs of cards if that's what you want to do. So let's take a look at the deck, and we don't have a couple of the heavy hitters, so I've lent into the Minotaur theme just a little bit more here, as we do have a couple more Minotaurs so we can pick them up with Tavrod. As generally with Tavrod, you're doing picking up the other weapons in the deck, like the Auric Runehammers, the Inquisitor's Blade and stuff like that. So I've gone off the weapons route and I've moved more towards a Minotaur route, but I think that's perhaps a lot better for new players. It's going to include like a lot of uncommons, like the Auric Bullies a common, and the Auric Sentry is really good in the early levels of the ladder anyway, because when you start playing you are going to be in bronze, and a 1-5 endurance unit is going to be really great for that, especially if you're able to stick a bloodletter on it. So the 10 rares I've picked here is 2 Auric Runehammer, 4 Valkyrie Enforcer, and a playset of the bloodletters here. I think that the bloodletter is perhaps one of the most important pieces of the deck. Is going to be help you. It's going to be able to help you to win any race, especially if you ever hit off a Tavrod. And of course you've got a bunch of good bodies that care about having weapons on them, so the bully gets +1/+1, so that can be a real swing again, a lot of beat up matches. And there's also another way to just make the Auric Interrogator really big, so you just get to keep drawing those cards. And next on, I've selected the Valkyrie Enforcer. Now this could be the Unseen Commando. If you open some packs and you find Unseen Commandos, I'd recommend you make that playset instead, but I feel like this will help you learn a lot more about the game, as you'll get to see how powerful Silence actually is, not only knocking out flying threats of your opponents, get rid of any pesky text like killer or deadly. It should really help you to sort of prioritize and figure out what sort of battle skills are actually important, as now you've got a way of dealing with them. You don't just have to look at it and go, oh well, I suppose that's going to beat me. Next off, I've decided to finish up with 2 copies of Runehammer, as this is less a format staple than the Valkyrie Enforcer, but it's still really important for the deck, and it's still an excellent hit off Tavrod, as well as even if you don't, it can protect you for a turn just from the 1 damage from Auric Interrogator when it does draw you a card, as well as be able to clear the way for a lot of your bodies. And as well, we've got the Minotaur Lighthoof here at 4. Normally, most Argenport decks, this would be a Impending Doom or a Crownwich Traitor, but we're going to touch on them in the next part of the video. But for now, I think Minotaur Lighthoof is a pretty safe card to own, because you're likely to own it and just by opening the packs that you're going to get in the first couple of days of playing, as well as it having some really good synergy with the deck, because I mean, you can pick up with Tavrod, which is great, but also this means Tavrod's unblockable the turn you play it. And you're also able just to get through with a bunch of other big units, like curving Auric Interrogator into Lighthoof is quite a lot of pressure. This deck should probably be craftable pretty easily and early on in your Eternal career, and there's a couple of things that you might want to change here as well. As I've gone for the full playset of Sabotage. If you don't feel comfortable playing a playset of Sabotage, feel free to go to 4 Finest Hour and play 2 Protects instead. And as you go on, like for the first couple of weeks, you'll figure out what you really want to be taking with Sabotage anyway, because over the course of a couple of games, you're going to figure out, well, I don't like Torch, so I'll Sabotage that. Or I really don't like Harsh Rule, so I'll Sabotage that. And that should be perhaps like a personal development point where you're going to, as you're playing, figure out what these things are, and then you might slip the Sabotages back in, or maybe you decide that you prefer Finest Hour because you like being really proactive and you just like to get in there with creature combat. The next big change we made is with the power base. And because I don't want to go over the 10 rare limit, which is just an arbitrary limit that I've set for myself, we're not playing crests. If you've got any crests, great. You can probably replace any power with one of them. And because we don't have the crest, I've put in some diplomatic seals. And these are a little bit tricky to get to play with, but basically if you play this and you've got 2 or less other influence, you get to pick whatever influence you want it to be. So it sort of helps with a little bit of fixing there, but it's also undepleted at all times. So you're able to curve out very nicely with it. The maximum influence we actually need is 2 Justice and 2 Shadow, so you can pretty easily work your way around that. And as another concession to not having the crests, I've gone up to a 2nd Emerald Monument, because this should help us a little bit in not flooding. As any point past where you would have 5 power in play and you draw this, or if this is in your hand when you have 5 power, it'll turn into the 3/3 Gemblade, which just gets you a little bit more power out of the deck. Okay, so let's look at the next version of this deck where we've powered it up a little bit. Okay, well here we are with upgraded Argenport, and now we're looking at a 28 rare set, which is a few more than we had in the last part of the video, but it's probably quite easy for you to see where to slot them in, and you can build these on as all really easy swaps here. Like you can see that you can just swap the Minotaur Lighthoof for the Impending Doom. So you can do all this as you're going. You can even mix and match. If you open an Impending Doom, just swap one of your Minotaurs for it. And say if you open like a Crest of Edges at any point, just stick it in. So because we have got the crest back in the deck as well, we've gone down to just the 1 Emerald Monument. As now we should have all our influence covered for the rest of the game, and we're not going to need Diplo Seals. And Diplo Seals do get worse when you've got 12 dual influence powers as well. We've also moved off the slight Minotaur sub-theme that we had previously. So I've traded out the Auric Bully for a Crown Witch Paladin, because this does work a lot better when you... I mean, admittedly we've only got the same amount of weapons now, but it works pretty well when you're just trying to get in there. You've also got the Auric Runehammer to make way for it. And I do really like having Warcry in the deck. But if you still like Auric Bully, because it is a 3/2, then feel free to just keep that in for now. The Crown Witch Paladin is only an uncommon, so it's pretty easy to slot in either way. But I do like that the extra play this is going to give to you as a player, because this is a unit with Aegis. And of course you get to do some of the cheesy games as well, where you're playing against something like Skycrag. You just make a Crown Watch on turn 2, and then Blood Letter up on turn 3. But the other reason for including is it's got 2 battle skills, which is going to work with the additional rare that we've placed in here, which is the Unseen Commando, which alongside the Valkyrie Enforcer, these are 2 of the most important rares that you're going to craft in Justice in the earlier portion of you playing the game, as these are definitely format staples. We've also got a lot of fly in this deck, so if you've only been playing for a couple of weeks, by the time you get to this point, you're going to really see how powerful flying is as a mechanic. And hopefully you're not going to get too frustrated by playing against Sandstorm Titans, but we do have a reasonable way of dealing with that because we've got Slay. And also, hopefully over the past couple of weeks you've been able to see how powerful the silence effects on Valkyrie Enforcer, because it also silences Sandstorm Titan, which is going to be really good for you because you'll be able to get in there with your Unseen Commandos, Valkyrie Enforcers, and Impending Dooms. Now, Impending Doom does look like it's not a combination with the Auric Runehammer, and you'd be right because it's not. But what happens here is that if you play the Auric Runehammer when you've already got a Impending Doom in play, you're invulnerable to damage for that turn. So it's a nice little trick to not take the damage that turn, as well as just getting rid of a blocker and just chunking in there for 5. The overall power level of the Impending Doom is enough for me to not be too worried about it being in the same deck as Auric Runehammer. But as before, if you feel like you don't want the Auric Runehammer, then you could also stay at 2 there. Now you could try like a different weapon in the deck, maybe even a weapon for a unit like a Lefray Falchion, or you could maybe even try some Talon of Nostrix. And let me get Talon of Nostrix up for you. So Talon is a common relic weapon, and a relic weapon goes on you as opposed to one of your units, but I like how this does really cheap interaction, and it's also really good if you're able to hit this with Tavrock, as you'll just have a 7/2 weapon, and that'll often clear the way for a lot of your units just to get in there and give your opponent the business. So overall, I think that this deck is pretty good, and it's good enough probably even to get you to Masters in Ranked, which getting in Masters in Ranked, what that'll do for you is at the end of the month, you'll get a foil premium, which is, well, it's either a foil premium, but while you're new, you probably just want to disenchant that, get the 3200 dust, and that'll be able to build you either a playset of rares or any other legendary that you really want. And that's pretty much how I built my collection, was just by doing that over the course of 6-7 months, and I was able to really build it up. Okay, so now it's time to see the full version of the deck. And this is the fuller version of the deck, and of course this can change by plus or minus a couple of cards. You could try some Vanquishes in here. Now, Vanquish is probably a spell I should have named earlier on, but I feel like it's a lot better the higher up the ladder you're going to get, because that's where you're going to be facing like the bigger time decks. But if you watch this far and you want to slam Vanquish in some of the early decks, then feel free, as it's a really good spell. It does deal with a lot of big opposing threats. And it's not even dead in a lot of beatdown matchups, because what Vanquish does, it's a 2-cost slow speed that requires 1 Justice Influence, and it will kill any opposing unit with 4 strength or greater. And surprisingly, it's not even dead in beat-up matches, because it gets to kill anything they put a weapon on, or even Champion of Fury against the Skycrag matches. But overall, it's a very good card, but I felt like we're a little bit too proactive for that, and we just want to be getting in there with the final Argenport deck. So here's where we are. And here we've bought the additional expansion here, Dead Reckoning, and I would definitely recommend this as well. If you were going to get 2 of the free expansions, then Dead Reckoning and Horror's Travel are the best ones to get, as these are going to get you the most played cards on ladder, as this expansion also gives you Hailstorm. So when we look at the other decks, like I think next week I'm going to do Chalice, we'll be able to implement that in that deck and see where we can go from there, because it adds a lot of power to your decks. So what I've added here is we've added the Crownwatch Traitor, and this isn't necessary for the final deck. You can still play Impending Doom here, and by all means a lot of people do, but I really like Crownwatch Traitor because that's going to make your Skycrag and other beat up matches a lot easier. And this also teaches you to play on Torch, and that's not as hard as it sounds, because everything in your deck is a Torch target. So if your opponent's still got one by the time you've played the Crownwatch Traitor, then you're in good shape anyway. But basically you get to learn about timing to it, and you can play this when your opponent does have a Torch and they've tapped out, which means they've got no power left to be able to play the Torch, and then it goes back to your turn. You could just like instantly place any weapon on it, or you can even protect it with Finest Hour, and your opponent just loses the opportunity to actually react to the Crownwatch Traitor being a 5-3. I always feel really good there, where your opponent's like, oh great, I'm going to hold up this power to try and torch that Crownwatch Traitor, and then you just go to your turn straight away, just put a blood letter on it. No, you're not. Like, getting in there, it's incredibly difficult to block. It's a lot less vulnerable to Permafrost than Impending Doom, and also Annihilate. And it's also immune to to Vanquish for the most part. But Impending Doom also gets a lot of work done because it's got actual evasion rather than just implied evasion. Because this has got Endurance and Quick Draw, which is pretty good at making it difficult for your opponent to block. But when you've got something like Flying, it can remove that choice from your opponent, and they're not really going to be able to chump it very easily. Of course, if you do play the Impending Doom, you might want to switch up the numbers between the Auric Runehammer and the Inquisitor's Blade. You might want to go down on Blade because you've got more natural fly in the deck, and you might go up on Runehammer because then you just want to get blockers out of the way. So the next inclusion here is Inquisitor's Blade, and this is going to really help you to grind for opponents, really. So you're able to find this with Tavrod after it's been put back into your deck, as well as it just being able to give you that real evasion, just help you to beat down. Like the Dream Curve against a lot of decks with not much removal, like even Grenadines, to play a Crownwatch Paladin, stick a Blood Letter on it, and then next turn just stick an Inquisitor's Blade. It's just a really difficult to deal with threat, and it's killed them on like turn 5 or something. And then you get to see what the Hurricano play style's actually like. But you get to play with more powerful cards, so I'm all on board for this. You also get to play with one of the better campaign cards as well, which is the Rip Knife Assassin. And by all means, this doesn't look like much, but what this does for the deck is, alongside the Crownwatch Traitor, you get a lot more of that early Warcry, which means that you're much more likely to get Warcries on things that matter. So you're going to stick a Warcry on an Auric Interrogator or a Blood Letter, or heck, even an Unseen Commando, and just remove that from Torch range, because that's where you want to be. In the matchups where this is good, then Torch is usually good against it. So if you can ever get that +1/+1, you're in excellent shape. But what the Rift Knife Assassin also does for you is it just gives you more implied evasion in the deck, as this is incredibly difficult to block, and often your opponent's going to be trading down for it. And if you're ever able to put a weapon on this and your opponent has to double block to kill it, even if Ripknife Assassin's power wasn't great enough to kill both units. Because Ripknife has Deadly, it will kill them both. But overall, this is a great inclusion. Though we've only seen 2 cards in this deck from the Dead Reckoning, there are a lot of cards from Dead Reckoning that will be included in other decks that we will be playing over the upcoming weeks. So I'd recommend that you did pick up those 2 campaigns. But this deck is honestly my favourite deck to play on the ladder. It feels so robust in comparison to what other decks can be doing, because often as a new player you'll get palmed off with this, oh, just build Skycrag, you know, build Rakano, and I don't feel like that's the right information for everyone. And by all means, Skycrag and Rakano are great decks, but not everybody likes that playstyle. They prefer like the more, if you come from Magic, they prefer a deck more like Jund. And this deck feels a lot more like this. It's got a lot more robust threats that can often end the game on themselves. I often feel like when I'm playing this deck that I'm just flooding and power screwing as well, just a lot less than I would be with other sort of basic fire-based beatdown decks, just because of how powerful everything that I'm doing actually is. As by now you've probably seen that the Tavern Auric Broker is not a joke when it comes to a card, because this is a huge amount of stats, and sometimes you just attack in even if it's going to trade for 1 or 2 of your opponent's units, just because there's a good chance you're going to get to draw a card or 2 off this, and the card that you draw is going to be excellent. And you also get to see a little bit of trickery in the deck as well, because if you've got a Inquisitor's Blade floating in the top portion of your deck because something you put on's died, then Tavrod can pick it up, and then Tavrod is, surprise, I'm a 13/8 flyer with endurance, and I'm just going to draw my owner a card every single turn. But fortunately that doesn't last very long because your opponent tends to die on the spot, but it's implied that this is what's going to happen. Okay, so thanks for watching. Of course I'll probably just ramble too much because this is just not scripted, but I would appreciate as much feedback as you could give me, because I'd really like to help the new player onboarding just be a lot easier for people, because I remember when I was first playing, this just came out of closed beta and there was a reasonable amount of resources. You know, I used the RNG tier list and just thought, okay, Stone Scar beatdown, that looks excellent. And this was back when Champion of Chaos was a 5/5 and you could play Soulfire Drake and Umbran Reaper in the same deck and just not care because the influence was great. So I think I'm going to do one of these a week, maybe more if I can fit the timing, because this is a lot easier than making an actual video where I'm playing games. But if saying that, if you would like to see me play a game with each of the videos, like maybe space them out in between the different deck techs, then I'm more than happy to do that. Though that probably would mean that I would just be doing one a week, because generally waiting queue times, all this stuff that you don't need to worry about, it takes some time to get edited and all this. But again, thanks for watching. I've been That Resolves. Feel free to follow, like, subscribe, all that sort of business. Leave a comment telling me any sort of feedback. If you just hated it, let me know. If you liked it, let me know. But anyway, see you on Reddit.